Hey, what's up you guys, it's IAmTheLionRider, and in today's video, I thought I would just pick up where we last left off talking about the upcoming 1.7 update that is likely going to include the North America DLC. So in my last video, I kind of discussed all of the animals that were likely and not so likely to be included in the pack, but in today's video, I thought I would discuss the stuff that is going to pertain to everyone, so not just the people that are going to purchase the DLC. So that is going to be the 1.7 free update. So in the past, as everyone knows, the updates that we get alongside the DLCs are free for everyone. So these are updates that added key features to the gameplay for everyone who owns Planet Zoo, and you don't actually have to purchase anything. This included things that were kind of like mainstays in what we now love about the game, like vista points and billboards and animal variation. All of these were big features that were definitely really exciting to be added. And now we're at the point where, as much as we all love the free updates, we don't really know where to go from here. So I thought we would kind of discuss the different options that we could have for the 1.7 free update and try to deduce, through a bunch of different sources and stuff, what those could be. So without further ado, I hope you just sit down and relax and we can jump into it. So the first thing that I want to discuss is, where do we go from here? So in the past, a lot of different 1.7 or a 1. Whatever updates were usually related to one of two things. They were either related to something that was proposed early into the game's development or marketing, I suppose. Things like animal variation or family trees. These were things that were promised, frankly, in the original pitch of the game. Similarly, keeper talks and other areas of the game like that were also advertised very early into the game. And even though they weren't actually in the game at the time, they were later made into, free features post-release. The other form of free post-release content came in the form of the different Planet Coaster things. So this includes things like vista points or different types of, other things that were ported from Planet Coaster, like billboards. And the only other one that really comes to mind that is left for, being ported from Planet Coaster is seemingly TMTK, so Theme Maker's Toolkit, which would essentially add official modding support for making props to Planet Zoo. Now, I'm going to explain why I don't think that is coming yet. And that really comes down to the fact that TMTK seems like an end-of-life support update. It came at the very end of Planet Coaster's lifespan, and it basically said, we are not making theme packs anymore for you. So instead, what we are going to do is let you guys make them. And that was, frankly, limiting in its own right, and TMTK has had a rough history with the Planet Coaster fan base. Some people like it, some people don't. But ultimately, it was definitely the kind of sounding alarm for the end of Planet Coaster's lifespan. Now, Planet Zoo doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. I think we all are in agreement that we at least have at least another 2 updates, if not more at this point. The developer log and stuff, or what was it? It was some sort of marketing thing. Did say that they were continuing support into 2022, so it's safe to say that we have a few more DLCs. So I don't think we're going to get that end of life TMTK thing in this update. So what are some other options that we can look at? So a thing that has been floating around the community recently, of course, are the kind of pretty notable leaks that make a lot of bold claims about what the next free update is going to include. And the 2 things that are mentioned specifically are food trucks and a type of ride that is going to supposedly be based off of the safari park at San Diego. They aren't sure which. It just says a vehicle. Now, they have kind of tossed it out there that it is likely the Tram, which is notable at the safari park. That seems pretty likely. I think it's far more likely than a hot air balloon ride or a zip line or something. And I actually think there's some credence to this, even outside of looking at just it's a leak. So if we actually jump over, I actually have this pulled up. we have this early concept art that was actually developed by Frontier and released to us, the public, to kind of showcase the early development process of how they were planning Planet Zoo. So in this concept art, there's a lot of information to digest, but there actually is a lot of key things that are really, really interesting. There's a lot of things that we actually got later in different patches throughout the game's lifespan that actually have kind of been I guess, advertised in this early concept. So things like jaguars or the duumpoms and stuff are all in this early concept art. So it might be safe to say that we could get new palm trees or something, since there's definitely some palm trees that we don't have in this concept art already. But more importantly, if we actually zoom in a little bit, if we just zoom in, as you can see here, this, I think that's number 25, give or take. Maybe not. I can't really make it out. It's 20-something. But this is clearly the tram that they were talking about. So this isn't the monorail. This is considered some other form of transport, I believe. It's like additional transport on the... Yeah, 26, sorry. Smaller transport is what they consider it. And that is going to be... or is it 27? Because 26 is down here. There's a lot of stuff. It's just a bunch of different transport things. I can't really make out what this number is. But that's clearly the tram from the San Diego Safari Park. So that at least shows that, yes, they actually definitely are listening to, you know, the San Diego Safari Park for inspiration, which I think we've all known. Like, this looks exactly like a San Diego-inspired park. The entrance literally is San Diego Zoo's old logo. A lot of these different features and stuff are very common in the San Diego parks. This elephant enclosure, for instance, looks very similar to the one there. So I think it's very safe to say that they definitely did take some inspiration. So a new ride vehicle or a transport vehicle does seem likely in general, because that is something that, I mean, we haven't had in a patch, and I think a lot of people like the transport rides. They just have been getting sick of using the same 3 or 4 over and over again. So a new transport ride would be appreciated, and I think the tram is an excellent addition. Similarly, if we actually go over here, it actually mentions right here that there is going to be a new kind of food truck. So they call it a food van. So this isn't really a food truck per se, but it is a food van, which is essentially the same thing. And I believe they call it like a veggie stand or something, a veggie food van, which is interesting because I don't think we have any veggie themed things yet. But it definitely could be something that would be very, very interesting. So there actually is some credibility here. It's number 14, Little Veggie Food Van, and it's right here. And so even though these claims are just kind of like, you know, a little bit weird right now, that, oh my god, where are these coming from and stuff, there is some credibility here. So we do have the possibility that they could be looking at this old concept art, and these could have been just scrapped features they were saving for future updates, as we saw with like the Jaguars or something. So I don't really see this as not a possibility. I think this is actually rather likely. So I actually do believe that, and that is totally plausible. So the next thing that I want to discuss are other features that could be very, very likely. So as a modder, obviously we often accidentally find things all the time. So I want to shout out my boy Leaf. Everyone loves Leaf. He actually covered this on his channel a while ago. But basically, it is the terrain swap coming to Planet Zoo. So terrain swap, of course, is going to be a thing that was ported over from Planet Coaster, and it allowed us to make custom scenarios. So if we just want to hop over, I can just show that right now. And we're back. So we are now on the main menu of Planet Zoo, of course. Everyone knows the globe and stuff. You can move it around. There's my little avatar, whatever. But if we actually go to the My Zoos tab, let's just select the thing we had before. If you hold Control before you hit Resume, it actually pulls up this menu. So this menu for Planet Coaster people seems very similar to something that you might be comfortable with, and that is the custom sandbox scenario maker. So what this essentially lets you do is select between different terrain paints. So you can like check, instead of grass, I want the grass to be desert, and then if I want, you know, some of the other things, if I want the rock to be a different texture, I can change the rock to be the rock texture from the tropical map or something. And so this is actually a thing that's already in Planet Coaster, And I actually think that a terrain update is rather likely for a few reasons. So obviously we have this, which is already in the game and programmed seemingly, but it does seem a little bit buggy. So I don't think it was complete. Obviously, the UI is clearly still like Planet Coaster colored. There's all these different blank spots that are like missing. But what it could mean, of course, is that we could be getting future terrain palette icons or something, so they could give us a bunch more options in the future if they wanted. But I think it's more likely that it's just not finished. Now, the other reason that I want to discuss a possible terrain update, of course, actually relates to a thing that my good buddy Jesse found. So Jesse, for anyone who doesn't know, is essentially like the king of modding for Planet Zoo. He is the one that has basically created Cobra tools and discovered every major discovery up until this point about everything related to modding, whether that be rig editing or new species or everything. Jesse was always at the front of the ship guiding everyone to basically do everything. So what he discovered recently when he was talking to Leaf and I was that there actually is files in the game already for dynamic waterfalls. So you might be like, what does that even mean? What is dynamic waterfalls? What it essentially means is within the in-game terrain editor, there actually is a feature already built in the code of the game. It might not be finished yet, but in the code of the game, there's a feature that basically says if there is a water source below another water source with a mountain connected, it creates a dynamic waterfall that would create a waterfall that basically bridges the two water sources. Now, this seems like, wow, that sounds awesome. But it's actually very cool for older Zoo fans of the game Zoo Tycoon, of course. So Zoo Tycoon 2 had this feature exactly like that. You basically could have two elevation levels with two water sources, and then if you drag one water source down to the other water source, it would create a waterfall. And so I think this would be awesome because the current in-game options for waterfalls, they're okay, but they are definitely by no means perfect. They are definitely a bit lackluster. Your two options right now, of course, are either you place down the particle effect versions of water, or you basically use those new aquatic pack waterfalls that we saw. So if you basically go into construction, your options, of course, are you could use the waterfall midsection, which is a particle effect, or you could use the water formations that were added with the aquatic pack. And so what this would essentially do is if you went into your terrain, you could just basically just add an elevation here. We'll flatten it out a little bit. You would be able to then make a water source. So we'll make a quick little water source. This isn't going to be the best example, of course, but you would make a water source really quickly. That's probably not the best example. Let's see, is that good? Yep. Water source down there. Then you can make another water source right below it, essentially. So this is a bad example again. And then basically, just like in Zoo Tycoon, you'd be able to click it, and then it would create a waterfall that would bridge the two. So this is already in the code of the game. So that is a thing that I think could be very, very interesting. Because if that is actually the case, that means that we could get an easier terrain editor or something. And so I think it's actually totally possible that we could get a big terrain update, which isn't crazy. I know Jurassic World Evolution in the first game actually did get a terrain update itself. It added a bunch of new terrain paints and stuff, and the basically better version of the base game terrain editor. So, you know, we're about almost 2 years out into Planet Zoo's lifespan. So, yeah, you know what? The terrain editor, not everyone has issues with it. I think it's pretty presentable in my opinion. But it would also be just nice. Like little things like the waterfall thing, I'm definitely not going to turn away. You would still have the ability to make your own waterfalls, or you know, use the base game terrain palettes, but options are always useful, and I don't care who you are. In a sandbox environment, people love options. So similarly, this is the thing that I think I just want to use my platform to. I discussed this with a few other content creators. We should start using our platform more to actually engage with features that we want. So in my last video, or not last video, but a few videos ago, I showed off this new mod that was created by an amazing creator in the Planet Zoo and JWE community that essentially allows you to basically fill in paths. But similarly, you can not only just fill in paths, but it also lets you actually build outside of the map boundaries, which is something really interesting that we didn't actually realize at first. So you can actually like not only build paths and stuff, but you can also build terrain things outside of the boundaries of the map. So it's little things like this, or the fact that the paths can go underwater and stuff, that just allow a lot more creative freedom that I think the community would really enjoy. So I am actually all for if Frontier did look into more of these creativity options, even if they weren't planning on adding them themselves off the bat. So with that being said, other options that I think would make for really cool updates, and these are things that I've said in the past would be awesome. So animal ambassadors, obviously, I think that would be an amazing update. I think it'd be a great expansion of Keeper Talks. Currently our Keeper Talks in-game are a little bit boring. Now, the point against animal ambassadors, in my opinion, for this free update, of course, I don't think it really fits the North America theme. I don't think animal ambassadors are really a thing that would be associated with North America. I think that could be a good like avian feature because of course things like parrots or eagles or something are excellent ambassador animals. So animals such as them I think would fit much better in like animal ambassador thing than North America, which is likely to have a lot of larger, you know, mammals and stuff. That we probably wouldn't have. Like, if you had something like a moose as an ambassador animal, that's a cool ambassador animal. But, of course, the next thing that I would probably tack on top of that as a, you know, free update that I would like, obviously, you know, we could talk about animal variation. I'd like, you know, custom tusks and stuff, but also don't think that's super likely. And the big thing that I think I would really like, of course, are diveable big cats or other more aquatic animals. Like, I think some of the animals in game right now, they're fine, but I think it would be a nice expansion on the existing free features that we already have. So we already have things like diveable polar bears and crocodilians. So as an extension, if we got like an alligator, obviously that would be able to dive. But I'd also appreciate it if they made it so that other animals could also dive with this update. So maybe things like jaguars, which are also in the code, they're technically able to dive to some extent. They just don't have the animations. And then maybe you could extend that to tigers or maybe even, and this is, you know, just me spitballing, I would appreciate it. It has nothing to do with North America, but if hippos could kind of have a more dynamic version of, not diving per se, but actually make them hop along the bottom of the water instead of just walking like it's land, that would be a nice thing to add as well. But I think that pretty much covers like basically everything I wanted to about the free updates. Let me know your opinions in the comment section about other free ideas that you would have, because I'm really excited in seeing where we go from here, because obviously North America, it's a little vague. It's not really super, you know, in your face about what we could get. So we could get a bunch of things that I think would be really, really interesting. So thank you for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.